Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic, host of Bachelorette Recap. Katie Thurston's season premieres June 7th, 2021. In the meantime, we've got drama popping up left and right in this Bachelor off-season. So the title of this article I'm about to read from People magazine, people.com, is Rachel Lindsay claims the Bachelorette purposefully cast black men who didn't date black women. Rachel Lindsay said she broke down at one point during her season over the selection of men of color. Now, if you're new to the franchise and don't know anything, what are you doing? You got to catch up. Rachel Lindsay's on the Mount Rushmore of Bachelorette alumni. She's one of the most recognizable voices out there. She's a lawyer. She knows how to prosecute her case, state her opinions, and has a pretty strong moral compass for what is right and wrong. No problem calling out people. Of course, her interview with Extra, she had a 14-minute unedited interview with Chris Harrison that sort of went viral for all the wrong reasons, for him at least, where he wasn't giving Rachel Lindsay the grace to understand what it's like to be a person of color on the TV show. And Rachel Lindsay, went on the show to sort of change the dynamics, switch things up, add more diversity to the show, hasn't really been happy with a lot of people at the progress of change within the show. Now, as we know, it's not just about casting a lead of color. It's about the stories, the editing, the producers, the diversity of thought that goes into the show, not just the final product you see on the TV. So it's been several years since she's been the lead of The Bachelorette, and she had stated once her contract's up that she's just done with the franchise. So now is the interesting time where we can hear what she actually thinks. If you didn't think she was telling the truth before, now we can get a little bit more tea, as the kids call it, and get some back of the house stories of what went down. Now, a lot of previous contestants on the show, like Jed Wyatt, has spent the last couple of months contemplating, do I tell my true story? Will I get sued out of the water? Luke P. sued for $120,000. Even when your contract's up, a lot of Bachelor contestants, former Bachelor contestants, don't want to anger the Bachelor gods. Oh, ye Bachelor in Paradise deity, please take this offering so you'll let me go back onto the show so I can regain relevancy. Now, the thing is, biting the hand that feed doesn't work well when you've already been fed. And Rachel Lindsay has other options. Her equity in herself and her name doesn't need Bachelorette. And a lot of people say, oh, how could you turn your back and criticize the thing that made you? And it's like baloney. Baloney. We should all be about progress. If it wasn't going to be Bachelor or Bachelorette that made Rachel Lindsay, it would have been something else. She's a ball of positive energy, and she's out there sharing her opinion, which clearly is worth something because you know her, I know her, and whether you like it or not, people listen to her. So she's got her podcast, Higher Learning with Van Lathan. She's got her show on Extra. She doesn't need The Bachelor, and frankly, she might be too big to fail. She might be too big for The Bachelor to come after her if she does slip by information she shouldn't be sharing. Because even though contractually her contract might be done, there's trade secrets they don't want to get out. They have these the only contracts that are worse than the Bachelor contracts are Scientology contracts. They sign it away for like 10 billion years. I feel like Bachelor's the same way. It's like until your deathbed, you can't talk about how we bump Harrisons in the fantasy suite. So let's just read this article, break it down, and we'll talk about it. Leave a comment, hit the like button, and please be polite in the comment section. Rachel Lindsay is continuing to open up about the diversity issues she has witnessed within the Bachelor franchise. The reality star, who was the first black Bachelorette back in 2017, appeared on comedian Ziwi Famudo's new variety show on Monday, during which Ziwi asked about whether Lindsay has ever faced backlash for ending up with a white man husband, Brian Abasolo. I do apologize if I messed up that person's name. Is it Ziwi? I please just let me know and don't kill me in the comment section. I am sorry. All three of the black bachelors and bachelorettes have ended up with partners who are not of color. Referencing Lindsay as well as Matt James and Tayshia Adams, who are respectfully dating engaged to white partners they met while on the reality series. It's something I was worried about before I went on the show, said Lindsay, 36. I think I got a little bit more grace because I was the first and people were just excited that a person of color was in this role. She continued, but then I think when the next person chose someone that wasn't black, and then by the next time we got to the third one, it was like, you know what, they're just going to not They're just not going to choose anybody that's black. Lindsay said she thinks about any backlash speaks to how unfairly people of color are held to certain standards that their white counterparts aren't, but added that it's also a casting issue. There was a point where I broke down on camera and they used my tears for something else, but I was getting upset at the selection of men of color. I also learned as I was going through my season that several of the black men on my season didn't date black women. Now, here's what's interesting. Not everyone knows this. I think you guys are pretty media literate. You guys, we talk about the behind the scenes of the show. Just because you see someone crying doesn't mean we know what it's about. You know, they can take one storyline, they can mix it in and overlap it with some tears. So she's saying she was crying because of one thing, which is, she said she broke down on camera and they used her tears for something else, and she was really upset about the men of color. So it's not too often that we hear people speaking out about how they were manipulated on the show. That is a manipulation. That's what that is. Sometimes it's for the good of the character and sometimes it's for the bad of the character. So if we're going to like somebody for what we see on the TV screen, we have to almost give a pass to some of these villains because we don't know what's going on. Do you guys remember when Blake Horstman was on Bachelor in Paradise? There was a scene of him like angrily running down the beach, and then he was like, guys, I was actually running to the bathroom. Now, if you ever got video of me, you know, after a couple of daiquiris running to the bathroom, I'm looking like, where's the urinal? You know what I mean? You look like a madman. So the point is, don't always believe what you see, especially if it's not unedited. When the host asked for more information, Lindsay said the show's producers found it interesting to choose black men who had never dated a black woman. I said, you think that's interesting? That's my life. I live that, Lindsay recalled. So yeah, Lindsay's like, look, I don't want to be your little science experiment. Okay, this is my life. You know, you're supposed to date Mr. Wrong. You're supposed to make mistakes before you find Mr. Right. She doesn't want to be the test dummy before they do the you know, it's like when you buy a car, right? You assume they've tested out the airbags, this and that. She's like, did you test the airbags on that guy dating black women? Because I want to know that he's into it and he's not gonna, you know, I don't want to be. It's kind of like with Rachel Kirkconnell. Matt James was like, look, I can't show you how it's done. You're going to have to learn this part on your own. It's kind of like similar. It's like you kind of want someone in a relationship who's been around the block, who knows a little bit about the culture they might be falling in love into. The star has long been vocal about issues of racism in Bachelor Nation. Earlier this year, she said she had enough with the franchise amid the controversy surrounding the show and longtime host Chris Harrison during James' season. The controversy arose when contestant Rachel Kirkconnell was called out for past racially insensitive social media posts, which saw her dressed a Native American attire and costume and attended an antebellum plantation-themed college party in 2018, which, of course, she has apologized for. Harrison, 49, addressed the situation during an interview with Lindsay on Extra. During their 14-minute unedited conversation, he said people should have a little grace, a little understanding, a little compassion in the wake of the resurfaced photos and question the lens of 2021 compared to 2018. Now, there are many ways in which people will say that both Rachel Lindsay and Chris Harrison have shared similar points on the fact that things do change. What we know today might be different than what we knew 6 months ago or even yesterday or 3 years ago or 5. I mean, watch a movie from the early 2000s and you go, oh my gosh. You guys remember Shallow Hal? No one's making Shallow Hal anymore. No one's getting dressed. No one's putting Gwyneth Paltrow in a fat suit or whatever. Whoever that was, it her Goop? No one's gooping her up in a fat suit and making a movie out of it. So Hal's Shallow and the whole thing, whatever. The point is that things do change now. 2018, it's just a couple years ago, 2018. Well, look at the last year. Look at the last 15 months. Life changes. Things move fast. And I'm not making an excuse for anybody. I'm just saying Chris Harrison, what he was guilty for, if nothing else, was for not being eloquent in his defense of Rachel Kirkconnell and not addressing the side of the community that was offended by her. He was too quick to protect, and at the same time, while protecting, he should have also said, but it's right to feel these triggering feelings when you see cultural appropriation or photos at a, you know, it is right to feel that way. And it's also, you know, it's also not uncommon that there's so much ignorance within our country still that people are still making those mistakes. So in my point of view, Chris Harrison missed the mark more so on his PR and delivery of his message and by not giving Rachel Lindsay the grace he was so begging of Rachel Kirkconnell. And again, like I said, I think he was just acting on behalf of Bachelor producers, which is ironic that they're kind of maybe or maybe not bringing him back when in fact he was just their PR tool trying to hype up the season. You're going to have to wait to see at the end of the episode. It's like, Chris Harrison, you might not be around for that. Following an outcry online, he issued a statement apologizing. Of course, we know that. He apologized several times. And then Lindsay said, I can't take it anymore. Hire, learn. I'm contractually bound in some ways, but when it's up, I am too. I can't do it anymore. Lindsay has since stepped away from the Bachelor Happy Hour podcast and announced her forthcoming memoir, Miss Me With That. So that's what we have there. Nothing groundbreaking. You can go check out the full interview. It was from a few days ago. But the idea that Bachelor producers would find it interesting to throw a wrench in the system for Rachel Lindsay by providing her people that hadn't dated black women. Not surprised so much, but the question becomes, what is the true intent from the producers there? Is the true intent just to stir up drama? So are they using race to stir up drama? Or was it their own ignorance thinking, oh yeah, no, I thought it would be good. You'd be like their first one, Hard to say. Hard to say what their intent is. Either way, they let Rachel Lindsay down. They let Matt James down. Let's hope there's a lot of change happening before Michelle's season, because I don't want them to let her down. I think what we need in this country, Katie Thurston season, Michelle Young season, I think we need to see a storyline where people find their guy, they find their girl, they find their match. I think we need to see love. I think we'd be okay if for a few seasons of The Bachelor, it's less about hate and more about love. And we saw with paparazzi photos earlier in Miami, even with all the issues that Bachelor created, because they sure did by their mishandling of Matt James and Rachel Kirkconnell, with all those issues they created, wouldn't it be nice to see Matt and Rachel still work it out without the Bachelor producers kind of like stepping their foot on the scale of drama? Because the truth is, and I've said this all along, they let the wildfire of Rachel Kirkconnell's past rage. And people say, oh, Rachel was allowed to talk. Even Rachel Lindsay said, oh, Rachel Kirkconnell's allowed to talk. They threatened her, guys. They must have messaged her and said, silence yourself, wait. And then finally she said, enough is enough. And she did an Instagram TV video, and she kind of let it all out. And people go, okay, all right, we've heard from her. All right, she's taking steps to progress herself and move in the right direction. Okay, so all Bachelor needs to do is step aside from their business model of save it all for the after the final rose. Heck, Bachelor producers could have in the reason why the Rachel Kirkconnell issue, and I know I'm bringing up different issues here, the reason the Rachel Kirkconnell issue got so out of control is because they didn't want to spoil the ending. Hey, newsflash, Matt James ended up with Rachel Kirkconnell. They didn't want to spoil that part, so people were just left wondering, and we just live in a society where that business model for TV show doesn't work anymore. Maybe they could have had a spoiled version of their YouTube where they say, look, they made it, and maybe it hurts their ratings a little bit, but at the cost of your 24-year-old Rachel Kirkconnell not just letting this wildfire build where she can't address the situation. In most cases, if you get in a fight with somebody, you say, oh, I'm sorry, and you apologize. Maybe a day or two later, several months go by, that person didn't apologize. They don't care about me. Oh, look, they're at a Starbucks. They're going to really shove it out. It's like, okay. Well, Bachelor needs to find out what to do. They've got YouTube. There's a free bandwidth there. They could even monetize it if they want, but they could find a way to tell the stories so people aren't left filling in the pieces, because what we've proved as a society is we're not really good at putting the puzzle pieces together. We want the truth, and we want the truth to be given unedited in a way where we can actually see it and feel it and use our own intuition to figure it all out. Well, we hope Rachel Lindsay keeps sharing her truth. I think that would be good for her and for everyone to see how the sausage is made. Not a bad thing to have her just start speaking her truth. You guys leave a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this and where does The Bachelor go moving forward. Hit the like button, and I will see you guys later on. Bye now.